Godzilla and Kong are still number one at the box office. An Indian knockoff of John Wick called The Monkey Man.
Is there a new action hero called the Monkey Man? All of this and more on this week's
Back to the Movies. Well, hello, and welcome back to the movies. My name's Winston.
And I'm Dawson. We're your hosts tonight.
Yes, very exciting. This is the first time I think that both of us have been on the same program.
Yes.
So there's been a lot of respect, you know,
Yes.
going around in the Back to the Movies behind the scenes stuff. But we're going to start off with what's peaking at the box office. Currently at number one, we have Godzilla versus Kong, The New Empire, once again remaining up at the top of the box office. Lots of people are going and seeing this.
Yeah, that does seem very popular. Going down to that number 2 spot, this one's a newer one, Monkey Man. Like Winston said at the beginning of the episode, is the Monkey Man the new John Wick?
You know, I've heard lots of interesting things about it. It's getting really good reviews. It's directed and stars Dev Patel. So that's certainly, you know, you could maybe make some parallels in regards to, you know, it being like a star-driven auteur picture of sorts, even though it also is trying for this kind of John Wick energy. I haven't gotten around to seeing it, but I probably will at some point.
I'm very excited. The number 3 spot is Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, which is another sequel in the Ghostbusters franchise. I did go see this one. This was actually the first Ghostbusters movie that I saw. I know. Surprising, right? They're like the classics, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was witty and it had a great plot, but I don't know. I'm not well versed in the Ghostbusters universe, so might be a little biased because it's my first.
I, on the other hand, I've seen all the other Ghostbusters movies except for this one. I haven't seen Frozen Empire yet. I still have that on my watch list. I was considering seeing it this past weekend, but probably looks like a next weekend thing.
Yeah, for sure. That number 4 spot, The First Omen, which is like horror movie vibe, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the 6th movie in like the Omen series, and it's like a prequel to the original, which came out like in 1976. And another one that's getting pretty good reviews. I mean, with all of these interesting reboots and of these old horror franchises, like there's the new Exorcist movie that came out just last year, and the Halloween movies, of course. It's always a mixed bag, and hopefully this one it lives up to expectations.
Yeah. That number 5 spot, we have Kung Fu Panda 4, which I saw.
Me too.
And I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I thought it was cute.
Yeah.
Like, it was just kind of made me feel good. I love Viola Davis. So her as the chameleon, she was great. So that's my opinion.
And we're going to be talking a little bit more about some of those movies coming up later on in this program, of course. But looking at the recent releases once again, we did talk about Monkey Man. Would you mind if we kind of took a brief look at what's going to be coming to theaters pretty soon as well?
Yeah, for sure.
Down a bit.
Do that.
Opening on April 12th is the film Civil War. This is another one of those kind of like apocalyptic films that everybody's talking about. There's been some interesting kind of controversy surrounding it, certainly, because the director of the film pretty much said that he lost his passion for filmmaking while making the movie. So I don't know if that's the best sign, but lots of people are hyped up for this one.
I think it's an interesting take, too. That it's not kind of set in that traditional like war vibe. I think it's a little different take. A24 is the production studio that's doing it. It's Kirsten Dunst, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love her, so I'm hoping that one will be good. Also, coming out on April 19th, The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
Yeah, another one of these kind of, I guess if you were to compare Monkey Man to John Wick, perhaps the thing to compare this to would maybe be Kingsman.
Right,
know?
yeah.
Because it's the latest movie from Guy Ritchie, also starring Henry Cavill in the lead role. Some pretty interesting interesting lineup, and taking place during World War II, so there's a bit of that kind of element going into it as well. I could see this one doing pretty well at the box office.
Me too.
And the final movie on this list that we have right here, opening on April 26th, is Challengers. This is one that has been getting quite a bit of hype. It's the latest film from Luca Guadagnino, who it was the director behind movies like Call Me By Your Name and the latest Suspiria, and starring Zendaya. So kind of another kind of romantic sports comedy.
I am very excited for this one. I think it, like, just by the trailers, it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. I love the cast. I love Zendaya. I love Josh O'Connor, who was in The Crown. I love Mike Fiast. Obviously, he's a Broadway legend, and he was in West Side Story. I'm very excited for this one. This is definitely on my top of excitement for 2024.
And speaking of exciting films, we're going to be coming back with more films that I saw.
Adding your own flavor to fashion comes with age.
Okay, Dad, look at you.
Yeah, welcome. Hi.
Forgetting how to add doesn't. Finding it difficult to work with numbers may be a sign of Alzheimer's.
Dad, are you okay?
An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's. Some things come with age, some others don't.
Welcome back. And now it's my time to kind of talk about some of the movies that I've seen. And coincidentally, one of them happens to be at the top of the box office. So what better way to demonstrate King Khan's box office supremacy than showing his supremacy over the Empire State Building? Yes, I did pick this up in New York. No, it was not in the Empire State Building. It was outside, but that's even more New York. Is that right?
It's very New York.
Yeah. Not so New York is Godzilla versus Kong, the new Empire, or I guess Godzilla times Kong, if we're going to get all, mathematical about it. This is the latest film in the MonsterVerse. This kind of got a soft start in 2014 with Gareth Edwards' kind of Americanization of the Godzilla franchise. And Gareth Edwards, I think that movie kind of gets forgotten about, because it's not certainly as hyped up and as critically appraised as maybe like Shin Godzilla or Godzilla -1. But nevertheless, it's a pretty good action spectacle monster movie. Considering all the other kind of examples of that franchise coming out around that same time. Then, of course, there was Kong Skull Island, which officially started, and then the subsequent Godzilla and Godzilla vs. Kong movies starring Millie Bobby Brown. She's not in this one, but nonetheless, Rebecca Hall's back. All-star cast. Apparently, I'm in this movie, which is really great. So let me just say that when I say I didn't really enjoy this one so much,
really?
It's not because of any of the residuals I'm getting off of the top of it or anything. Yeah, I mean, I guess when it comes to the history of Godzilla and the history of King Kong, these, when we talk about long-lasting franchises, I'm surprised these ones don't really come up more in the conversation, like in comparison to like James Bond, because there's such an amazing film history. King Kong going all the way back to the 1950s, and of course Godzilla very much emerging from kind of post-atomic age, post-World War II paranoia in Japan. And so there's a real existential horror to both of these franchises. And for the most part in this movie, they just kind of act like, cute animals. And it's not really that much to get terrified. Like King Kong practically has like a son or like a pet in it. And it's kind of weird, I mean, I had a good time, but it kind of is, it's a bit schlocky.
Yeah.
It's a bit schlocky.
That's fair. It's very fair. I didn't get to see that one. My prop is also representing Godzilla X Kong, but I didn't have a Godzilla action figure or a Kong action figure. So I brought this lovely dinosaur because dinosaurs are big.
It's Godzilla 98. We'll
Right?
go with
Yep.
that. But speaking of Millie Bobby Brown, another movie that I did see is a new movie on Netflix. This premiered on March 8th. It's called Damsel, another kind of dark fantasy film.
Yeah.
I checked this one out because I really love dark fantasy films. And I just had, time to kill. So I put it on and I was like, that was all right. I mean, I like any movie that kind of has a bit of a backstory, there's some interesting stuff happening with the family, but I just don't think it's really developed out that much.
I agree. I liked the beginning. Because I saw this one too. I really liked the beginning, and I thought it kind of set it up to be like it could have been really good. But I thought the ending was kind of predictable.
Yeah.
I wasn't surprised. But I mean, yeah, I agree. It was like fine.
Yeah, I do kind of like the whole idea of like the selling your prince around,
Yeah.
and being like, okay, where are all of these princesses going? It's kind of a funny concept in regards to that. But in terms of kind of coming of age and self-realization, I certainly don't think it's one of the best movies to cover that in recent memory. Another movie that I saw also pretty recently that I guess is also in some way a coming of age film is 2023's Poor Things, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos.
Yep.
My mother really wanted to see this, weirdly enough, so yes, I watched it in the worst of possible situations. But Yorgos Lanthimos is of course a critically acclaimed director who has done movies like The Favorite, The Lobster, and so I was very excited to kind of see his like interesting like steampunk vision. And it's very, very much focuses on, I guess the main premise is, what if you took like a child's brain and put it in like an adult person's body? And hijinks ensue. Once again, it is a hard R. So weirdly enough, I did see it on Disney Plus.
Oh,
So,
really?
Yeah. So that's, it's not typically the movie you
Right.
associate with, that platform. But
Well, I do have to ask you this. Do you think Emma Stone deserved the Oscar
you
for
know,
Best Actress?
I think that it's so hard to tell with those movies
Right.
because of course when you go and compare like Emma Stone's performance against Lily Gladstone's performance, it's like apples and oranges.
Yeah.
They're completely different things. Emma Stone had me laughing on the floor though. Just there's so many great moments in her performance. Willem Dafoe, I love the sense of humor of this film because like it's very dark and it's very twisted.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not just like shock value, humor. It's kind of like getting into the absurdity and like a mad scientist. Mark Ruffalo is absolutely hilarious in this one too. I think that I wish they expanded upon the movie a little bit further beyond what they did. I think that they followed kind of the romantic themes of it perhaps a little
Yeah.
bit too closely. I wish they had a bit more of like the Fado player, like when she's just transfixed on that and when she's seeing like the couple having the argument. I think that some more of that could have added some more dimension to the film, but overall, I still really enjoyed it. So,
Yeah, for sure.
I certainly can always rely on Yorgos Lanthimos for some creating
Right.
visuals.
Yeah.
But speaking of which, and more visuals, we'll be right back with Dawson's thoughts on some of the new movies.
I know you're going through a lot. I wonder if you know that we can get help. Let's see how far we can go. Love, your mind.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff, like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Welcome back. Jumping right back into our movie talk. What I've been watching recently. So I've kind of been lacking on my newer movie watching. I have been to the theaters twice, 3 times this year, and I saw Kung Fu Panda. I saw Ghostbusters, which I both enjoyed. I think I have kind of touched on them a little bit on this episode, so just kind of brushing past those. I thought they were decent movies. I understand why they're at the top of the box office right now. But yeah, so like I said, I've been kind of lacking on my like new movie watching, so I have kind of been taking it back. I've been doing a lot of like movie watching while doing homework, so just what's on the streaming services. But one of my all-time favorite movies that I have watched probably like 4 times this year already is The Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah.
I love that movie. I love Meryl Streep. I love Anne Hathaway. The fashion in that movie is just to die for.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was kind of like brilliant, especially for the time that it came out. Like I think that was kind of at the height of the supermodel idea, kind of coming right out of the 90s.
Yeah.
When Naomi Campbell, Gisele Bündchen, all of them were huge. So just kind of see into the fashion industry and what that was really like, and especially with May right around the corner, the Met Gala and a winter Vogue. I just think that movie stays current. It stays relevant. And I think it's just beautifully done and beautifully written. Also, Bodies, Bodies, Bodies was just came out on Netflix. I did see it in theaters. And when I first saw it, I wasn't the biggest fan. I didn't understand it, but I watched it again recently, and I think knowing what was going to happen, I was like, okay, this is hilarious. Like, this is really funny. Like, the jokes were great. I think it was almost a commentary on how society tears each other apart, and how we create villains out of nothing. And I thought that was really smart. It was witty. I mean, it was a lot of fun. And Rachel Sennott, who was in that, was also in Bottoms, which I watched on a plane recently. And I thought that was kind of the same vibe. That was just hilarious. And Io Debris, she was in that one too. But yeah, I've been watching a lot of like, not like many intense things, a lot of really lighthearted things.
Well, I mean, like that's kind of like a horror movie, but it's like a horror comedy.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten around to seeing it. I've heard good things about it, but I think that was probably around the time when I was seeing like Pete Davidson everywhere,
Yeah.
and he was like advertising water and dating everyone, you know.
Right.
And so I probably was like, Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. I'll go and catch that on streaming. So maybe I will catch it on streaming.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it the second time around. I thought the second time it was definitely better. And then preparing kind of this year, because I think this is almost like the year of continuations, the year of sequels, I rewatched Inside Out.
Oh, yeah.
Disney Pixar's Inside Out, because the second one is coming out this summer, which I'm so excited for. But I was like, I'm going to rewatch the first one so I kind of get it relocked in my mind. But that movie is just like, it's just beautiful. Like, that's the only word I know how to describe. It's funny. The animation, I think, is brilliant. It's a great cast. Amy Poehler, Mindy Kaling. She's not going to be in the second one, but she was in the first one. The story, I think, is just so creative and something that, like, no one, like, would think about. Like, what are these emotions that are controlling our head? But it was just beautiful. And when Bing Bong dies, I cry.
Don't spoil it.
I know.
You're gonna make me cry again.
I cry every time that scene comes on.
It's like Pixar, of course. They're always known for kind of like the sweet and like the bitter at the same time, and I think that's probably up at the top. And like the end of Coco comes to mind. It's waterworks. But it's interesting that you mentioned the sequel, because once again, I think that there was like a period, like Inside Out was kind of unique, like when it came out, because like Pixar had just like released a long string of like nothing but sequels, and that was like their original film, and I think Good Dinosaur was shortly after that.
Yeah.
And that was back when I was like, oh yeah, new kind of original Pixar IP. Well, now it's kind of like the opposite, where it's like, let's see kind of where, Riley is all these years later, and all these emotions, all these characters. And also, I guess, the Minnesota connection.
Yeah,
You know?
gotta love it.
Yeah. Well, she moves away. So,
Yeah,
Bush
but
is every Minnesotan's dream, really,
you
in
can
some way.
but you can take the girl out of Minnesota, but you can't take the Minnesota out of the girl.
That's true.
That's what we always say.
That's true.
But yeah, I'm really excited for the kind of sequels that are happening this year. Inside Out, Moana, like all the Disney ones that are coming out. I'm very excited for Moana. That one I'm really looking forward to. I don't know, but yeah, I've been slacking on my new movie watching for sure. So I need to get back on that. So hopefully this summer I'll be able to catch all of the summer movies that are coming out.
Yeah, I mean, like it's going to be an interesting box office for sure, because I think that we're just starting to kind of feel like the aftershocks of like the strikes that went on last year, and so we're seeing kind of maybe a bit more of a slowed down release schedule. Even looking at that release schedule earlier, there's like one big movie coming out like every weekend, which is very different than looking back even at like Barbenheimer, where it's like, and then Mission Impossible, like was it Dead Reckoning Part 1 came out like, I think was it the weekend before or something like that. Just absolutely crazy. But still, lots of options to go and see in theaters.
Yeah, I'm very excited for the summer of movies that's coming up, and summer and rest of the year really.
Yeah.
I think it will be a good year for movies.
Yes, and as we kind of stop talking about this year in movies, I should say, it's time to look back at some of the events that have happened in the past, right after this.
Best crowd in college hockey. Best atmosphere in college hockey. I mean, this is what it's all about.
Again, so far, St. Cloud getting an opportunity here. Cooper scores! Turnaround shot, Chelsea, they score!
To guarantee a spot, and we put ourselves in a good spot. There we go.
How do you know when you've made the right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut. The one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink. Or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking. Now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed. Better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead. Catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Well, welcome back to the movies.
Welcome back.
And we have time for one more short slot of film.
Yeah.
And so we talked about movies that are coming to theaters near you, but we didn't necessarily say what's coming to St. Cloud State University. So on April 18th through the 20th, they're going to be showing The Hangover in Atwood. So, yes.
Love that one. One of my all-time faves.
I'm sure that's going to be a very popular one.
Yeah,
and then the international film series continues on April 16th with the Japanese Naomi Kawase film Radiance. So that's the penultimate film in the final series of the international film series at Atwood. Speaking of international film, I think it's time to get into cinema history. We're going to kick off in 1929. Famed Ingmar Bergman collaborator Max von Sydow was born. Lots of people probably over in the United States would be more familiar with him for like his very much blink and you miss it like role in Star Wars: The Force Awakens.
Yep.
But my personal favorite role of his probably has to be in the SCTV spin-off film Strange Brew.
I'm unfortunately not familiar with Strange Brew.
It's a great movie. Looking at 1936, not necessarily going into films as much, but certainly a sports and television personality, as well as video games. John Madden was born. In 1951, am I actually going to say it? Steven Seagal was born. Everyone's favorite actor.
Right.
In 1956, we had the first 3D movie in color premiering in New York, that being House of Wax. Also in 1954, another first. Auguste Lumiere, who was the inventor of the first film projector in the 1890s, passed away. 12 Angry Men in 1957
that one.
premiered. Yeah.
Great play. Great movie,
yeah.
too.
And there was a really good remake of it in the 1990s as well. Of course, the classic version is the classic version. Yeah. 75, David Harbour of Stranger Things fame
Gotta love him.
was born, you know. And another movie that I recently saw was Black Widow. I'm finally getting back on the Marvel train after like 4 years. I'm like, I really ought to catch up with all those movies that I missed.
Right, right. 1988, Haley Joel Osment is born. Child actor. Gotta love him. How can you go wrong?
You know, can see dead people. That's a pretty impressive thing.
1992, Daisy Ridley is born, who was Rey, correct?
Yeah, big day for Star Wars births. You know, especially Force Awakens related ones.
Right. 2014, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is released. Andrew Garfield.
Yeah,
right?
Andrew Garfield.
Emma Stone.
Yeah, and I guess Emma Stone was kind of a poor thing in that one based on how that ended and how the franchise kind of ended after that.
Yeah, I do think Andrew Garfield is my favorite Spider-Man.
He's great. He's great in that role. I love Andrew Garfield as an actor, and so hope to see him in more things.
Agreed. 2017, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 released. I was kind of disappointed with that one. I did really like the first one, and personally, I didn't think it lived up.
You know, I really enjoyed Volume 2. I thought that the whole father and son relationship, how they built that up, and, you know, it was, you know, I love anything that Michael Rooker is in, but Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, now that's another one. That's one of those Pixar movies.
Right, for sure.
Where it's like one moment you're just like, yeah, and then the other moment you're like crying.
Yeah, just like sobbing. Like, face is wet.
Yeah, I sometimes forget that came out last year.
Me too.
Yeah, that was such a good movie.
Great movie.
Well, with that all being said, that's about all the time we have on Back to the Movies this week. And want to thank you, Dawson, for being such a wonderful co-host.
Thank you, Winston. It was lovely hosting with you. I'm glad we could do something together finally.
It's back for more. It's back with a vengeance. It's back with a new episode every other Friday at 8 p.m. on UTVS and streaming on Vimeo and YouTube.
Oh, what? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's great.
It's back to the movies.
Hutchinson, man, has been dominating defense.
You were talking Sauce Gardner, now you throw Hutchinson out here.
No, but if you want a sleeper, he's a sleeper.
Ladies and gentlemen. Get ready.
No.
The Suns are mentally weak. They're mentally fragile.
You don't know what you're talking about. You need to
It's crunch time.